Hello everyone, welcome. We're here on CM42 TV. Thank you very much for joining us today. And this is, my dear friends, the annual video that I do every January. I'm obviously not the only one that does this, but I am one of those people that throw their names into the hat of these types of videos. And you know me, I love a list. I love a countdown, and this particular list is my top 15 films that I watched for the very first time last year, that year being the year of 2020. 2020, a year that a lot of people are going to want to forget. I was very lucky in 2020. A lot of good things happened to me. Very little bad things happened to me. So I can't be one of those people that's complaining about it. I'm sure, 2020 was a horrendous year for so many people. So I feel really bad saying that I had a good year, but all in all, it was pretty good. And I just assumed during the full lockdown, and in like mid 2020, I would have been watching loads of films, multiple films a day, and that sort of thing. Not really prominent lockdown, say like May sort of time 2020. I was watching lots of Netflix shows. I wasn't on a film kick at all, and then it kind of picked back up in the summer towards the end of the year. So the way I do this every year is any film that came out prior to 2020 is eligible on this list. No films that I had seen before, and no films that were released in the year that we're talking about, and that is 2020. So any film that came out from December 31st, 2019 or before, all the way back to say the 20s or the 1900s or anything like that. I should stress this as well, a big point of I always talk about when I'm talking about films, whether it be on a podcast or in a video or that sort of thing, or even just in general life when I'm talking to someone about movies, is that I think the most effective way to watch movies is watching them more than once. I think you don't fully appreciate and enjoy the full presentation of a film any time before the second viewing of a film. Call me crazy, I know a lot of people just watch a film and that's them done, move on, I've seen it sort of thing. I can't fully talk about a film, I don't think, until I've seen it more than once. So that always makes this list interesting, especially when I look back on the lists. So I'm like, really, that film is like number 14 or something? And I've done top 20s and top 25s and that thing in the past. So I think it's gone back to 2016 I've been doing this since. So if you enjoy this one, please go check out those ones. But this is the 2020 edition and I hope you enjoy. So in 2020 I watched 105 movies. Still quite a lot, considering the fact it wasn't like a pure prominent moment of my year watching films. I was happy I cracked 100, hoping to go for more, get to like 150 or something in 2021, I would be happy. Although we're in double figures now in terms of the days in January, and I've only watched one film so far. Not off to the great start. And in terms of all those 105 films, for the first time I watched 40 of them. So I had to round 40 down to 15. So it was quite hard doing this, but I always enjoy making these lists and I will run through them right now. So number 15, I'll kind of move over so I can put a wee picture here if I can. Number 15, I don't need to put a picture because I've got it on Blu-ray. Number 50 is Big Trouble in Little China. And by the way, now that we're talking about Blu-rays, check out my complete full Blu-ray collection video that I posted last week. Really enjoyed making it. Got some good feedback, so it's 54 minutes of my silly face, so go check out that. 54 minutes of me talking about films if you enjoy this one, and there you go. So Big Trouble in Little China is my number 15 choice, watching for the first time. I had bought this one before and was always sitting on my shelf and was always really high up on my list in terms of ones that I wanted to watch. I like Porco Rosso, I like John Carpenter. I just didn't know what to expect, and I was waiting for the right moment to watch this film, and I kind of picked the right moment. I believe it was like November I watched this and really enjoyed it. Nothing overly spectacular, it's just wall to wall, a lot of fun, typical 80s, is this 70s or 80s? 1986 this film came out, so typical 80s, typical John Carpenter, typical Kurt Russell, just daft, fun, and more silly than I was expecting as well. I was expecting a typical kind of action-adventure film, but it was quite silly, and that was quite refreshing. And after I watched this film, I enjoyed it so much, the night after, I watched the audio commentary of it as well by John Carpenter himself, which was quite interesting. I believe Kurt Russell's on that one too, so that was really interesting too. That's another reason to get the Arrow video release of this film. So number 15, Big Trouble in Little China. I was wanting to watch this one because I saw Escape from New York in the cinema back in 2019, I think. So after watching that, I was like, I need to check out Big Trouble, and it lands at number 15 on this list. Number 14 is another Blu-ray that I picked up in 2020, and that is Donnie Darko. Now, the reason this is number 14, because when you watch this film for the first time, I don't want to give any spoilers or anything, this is a really complex film, so well done, and so well acted, it's unbelievable. And I know for a fact that when I rewatch this film, and what I was talking about, the second viewing or the third viewing, when I watch this film again, I'm going to rate this so highly, I'm going to just love this film even more than I already did but I think it's going to take more than one viewing to fully appreciate this film, and anybody who's seen Donnie Darko will know what I mean. It's such a great film, so well made, so well written, great idea, but it's so, I don't know, mind-blowing at times. I think it needs like a rewatch, it needs a second or third viewing to fully appreciate everything in this film. Number 13, another film I have in my collection. Like, definitely this isn't a trend for the rest of the video. This is Easy Rider, this Criterion Blu-ray. Isn't it very pretty, this one? I really like the design and the artwork in this one. But this is Dennis Hopper's Easy Rider from 1960. I was not alive, believe it or not. I know I look old. I was not alive in the 60s. But when I watched this film, I couldn't believe that nothing really happens in the film. It's about two guys that pick up another guy, that are just living a free, hippie-like lifestyle in America in the 60s. And once I watched the film, I was kind of like, really? And I kind of did a bit of research on it and stuff like that, and I was like, maybe I'm missing something. I didn't really enjoy it as much as I thought I was gonna. And when you do research on it and you watch some things about it and you watch interviews and reviews and that sort of thing, people explaining to you that it's not supposed to be this big start, middle and end story. It's more about like a sort of like a snapshot, a screenshot of what life in America was like in the 60s for people who wanted to be free, people who wanted to go against the rule book and that sort of thing. And that's absolutely what this film is. And once I read those reviews and I saw those videos, I was like, oh my god, so obvious. So I watched the film again and enjoyed it so much the second time. And then I watched it a third time with the audio commentary with Dennis Hopper, and that was so enlightening. And it made me love the film even more. So a great film that definitely, again, needs more than one watch to fully appreciate. But in terms of watching it for the first time, number 13 in 2020. For the rest of them, up until the first choice, I don't have them again on Blu-ray, so enjoy some pictures in this corner of the screen. Number 12 on my list is Dragon, a Bruce Lee story. I recorded this film because it was on Film 4 one afternoon, and I recorded it thinking it was a documentary about Bruce Lee. And then I watched it, and to my delight and surprise, it was a film. And it is a very, I mean, what an interesting and well-lived life Bruce Lee had, right? And I just expected, how are they going to do this in like 2 hours? Surely this could be a multiple film story over like a trilogy or something like that about Bruce Lee's life. And they've done it in a real kind of rapid fashion, and sometimes I don't like that. I like it when a story is drawn out and it takes its time. Whereas this one, I just connected with this one. I don't know why I loved it so much. It just was like boom, 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 boom. Here's the story of Bruce Lee's life. And it was such a blast to watch the highs and lows of his life. And there's parts of it I didn't know about, obviously. And then, you know, doing research about him as I was watching it made it really interesting as well. So I mean, a really hidden film. I'd never heard of it before because I thought it was a documentary. So check it out if you see it. Dragon, a Bruce Lee story. I really want to add it to the collection. All of these films I'm going to talk about today, I want to add to the CM42 TV classic movie collection because it deserves it. Number 11 is a Disney classic. I say classic, I think it came out in like 2012 or something. Big Hero 6. I watched this for the first time in 2020 and loved this as well. Had no idea what to expect, but it was always very high up on my to watch list, especially because it was Disney and it was a film I hadn't seen before. And I mean, it's so much fun, and it's kind of like not complex or complicated, but it's like you've got your typical Disney theme with like the boy who meets his friend that's sort of not a real character, is a fictional person but is now his best friend, and they go through this adventure together. But it's like aspects like a sort of like created mythical place between San Francisco and Tokyo, and I just didn't expect that, and it's just this really cool dynamic between the main characters and Baymax, the fictional character, and it's just again a typical Disney sort of warm, heartwarming story, and really, really funny at points as well. There's a moment where Baymax, who's like this inflatable thing, starts kind of losing air out of himself, and because it's losing air, Baymax appears to be drunk. And there's a really funny scene where it's like falling about the place and talking as if he's drunk and stuff. It gives people knuckle touches, and he goes fa la 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 la, and that became like a meme in our family for a bit after watching this film. So yeah, Big Hero 6 was a big success, and again needs a rewatch because I think this will another one that's going to be more appreciated the more times that you watch it. Number 10 is Nightcrawler. This again has been on my watch list for a long time, and I love Jake Gyllenhaal. I really like Riz Ahmed, and the two of them just have a belter of a film because it's so unstated, this film. Understated, I should say, understated. There's nothing overly dramatic in this film. It is such an interesting story. Jake Gyllenhaal plays a cameraman. He doesn't like play a cameraman. He discovers that if he's like broke, he loses his job. and he discovers that if he becomes a cameraman and films things and sells it to the news, he can make money that way. And he tries to, I guess he called them Nightcrawlers, and sits out at night and tries to find these sort of like crimes and hits and that sort of thing, and tries to film them for television channels. It's really interesting. I've just never thought of that side of life before. And Jake Gyllenhaal's the perfect actor to play a kind of absurd, kind of weird character, you know. So Nightcrawler's a great film. It can be quite slow at times, but it kind of pays off in the end because it's such an understated film, as I say. So it's on Netflix. I would recommend checking out Nightcrawler because there's a good chance you've not seen it. I think it's quite underrated. So number 10 is Nightcrawler. Number 9 is Castaway. For some reason, I had the urge to watch Castaway in quarantine. I don't know why, but yeah, everybody was talking about Castaway at the start of quarantine, the start of lockdown back in late March of 2020, which is weird to think is nearly a year ago. It's crazy, man. Everyone talking about, I feel like Tom Hanks in Castaway, and I was like, Castaway's always been one I wanted to watch. Now is the better time than ever to watch it, and my God, what a great film. And again, film that you watch, and I was expecting Tom Hanks to be stuck on this island for the whole film and that's it, but there's like a beginning before he gets on the island, this big dramatic moment where he crashes his plane. What a scene. He lands on this island, he's there for the duration of the film, and then there's a whole section after it as well. Didn't expect that, a pleasant surprise. And because right at the start of quarantine and lockdown, it was like Tom Hanks was one of the big first names to get COVID. It was just nice to see him on the screen. Nice to see him. I'm glad he's doing well, Tom Hanks. Number 8, you want to talk about complex films, Memento. Jesus. I had never really heard of Memento. I always knew about it. I'd seen like the Blu-rays before, and I'd seen it on Sky Movies before and that sort of thing, and just never really rated it or really thought about watching it. And it's just one night, I guess, I decided to watch it. I guess I recorded it and I was like, it's time to watch some more obscure films that I've never seen before. And the reason it's so high up on this list is because of the way I watched it. So if you've seen Memento, you know that it's a guy that has short-term memory loss, and the film essentially is explained to you backwards because he is sort of retaining his thoughts as the film goes on, and then you see him losing his memory as the film goes on. It's really interesting, and it was really complicated, and it really took me some time to kind of think about it and go, what just happened there? So as the film finishes, it's about exactly 2 hours long, right? And after the film finishes, then you kind of get it. It's one of those films you need to watch the whole way through to fully appreciate. I can imagine someone watching it 45 minutes in and probably turning it off because, like, what is this supposed to be? So then I did some research on the film. I like doing that, especially on complex films, because I can be quite slow sometimes. Someone had uploaded the entire film onto Dailymotion, and they put it on Dailymotion in the correct order. Like, they'd reversed all the scenes and put the last scene first, and the second last scene second, and the third last scene third, and went through the whole thing like that. So it was, again, 2 hours. So I watched the entire film again, straight after the film, and I watched it in, chronological order from beginning to end, and it just gave a total new meaning to the film. And actually, I kind of almost enjoyed the film the wrong way round, like on second viewing, than I did the original viewing of the film. And obviously, it's meant to jolt your memory, and it's meant, no pun intended, it's meant to really kind of be complicated. But see, when it was like explained and played out in a linear way, I enjoyed it more. I guess maybe because I can be slow sometimes, and it was easier to understand. I don't know. Memento was great though. Number 7, Marriage Story on Netflix. Got to get this Criterion, by the way. I love Scarlett Johansson and I love Adam Driver even more. I just thought these two actors were just, they're proving why they're two of the best. Amazing film, amazing relationship, and amazing writing. My God, what a great film. Really emotional. It really tugs on your heartstrings for a bit. You might cry. I know a lot of people who watched this film and cried. I just love Adam Driver, man. I could watch Adam Driver read the phone book and be interested. But I could do that about a lot of people. Tom Hanks is another one. And people with good voices. But there's something about Adam Driver. Maybe it's the Star Wars thing. I don't know. But yeah, such a great film. There's not really much else I can say about it. I watched it in January 2020, so it's been over a year since I've watched it. So I can't remember it too much. And it's almost like it's due a rewatch. But I know how emotionally draining it is, so I don't know if I want to rewatch it anytime soon. But it's got a great Criterion release, so maybe if I get that, then maybe I'll watch it again. Number 6, Porco Rosso from Studio Ghibli. I'd heard about this film for so long, I should say. And all of the Studio Ghibli films were put on Netflix, and I was like, yes, finally my time to watch them. And I just never watched them. I really want to see My Neighbour Totoro. I really want to see A Howl's Moving Castle. I really want to see Spirited Away. I've never seen Spirited Away. Maybe that's going to pop up on the top 15 of next year's first time watches. But Porco Rosso, man, how much fun is Porco Rosso? The animation's so interesting too. It's like you're not your typical animation that I came to expect, or I've come to expect. The cat, I mean, it was Michael Keaton as well. I love Michael Keaton. So any film that he's in, whether it's just, voice acting like this film, or whether he's just a cool guy, I'm happy to watch. And there was something about the flying pig that was really interesting that I just never expected to be this heartwarming family animation that I'd never really seen or heard much about before. So Porco Rosso's great. I think it was a great introduction to Studio Ghibli for myself. And now I can't wait to watch more Ghibli films. And I guess my next one will be Spirited Away. But there's so many. There's Mary and the Witch Flowers. That's a good one too. God, there's so many on there. And they're all on Netflix, which is great. And I really liked Porco Rosso. So thank you to Studio Ghibli for putting them on Netflix, because they're quite hard to find and they're always really expensive. Like, I feel like I've heard about Spirited Away and Porco Rosso so much in my life. I would have bought them on Blu-ray at some point, but they're always too expensive, so it's nice to see them on Netflix. Top 5 now. Number 5, They Live. John Carpenter's They Live, starring Roddy Piper, my pal, who, if you listen to my wrestling podcast, The Wrestling Connection, you will have known that I have met Roddy Piper, and it's probably the best experience I've ever had meeting a wrestler, or meeting a celebrity, in that case, any wrestling fans out there. But yeah, the reason that I've always wanted to watch They Live is because of Roddy Piper. And I watched Big Trouble, and I'd seen, Escape from New York and that sort of thing, and I was like, okay, it's time to watch a John Carpenter, and I believed I watched They Live on Halloween. So although it's not a horror film, it's that kind of sci-fi thriller sort of thing where there's like aliens and that sort of thing. And again, a twist that I didn't really expect. I just expected it to be like an action adventure film with Roddy Piper chewing bubble gum and kicking ass. And that didn't really happen. He's more of a kind of crook, a bit of a bum really, isn't he? And ends up being the hero who finds a gun and some bubble gum, who ends up being all out of bubblegum and tries to fight these alien people. And it's really interesting, and I really, really now want it on Blu-ray, because I actually think it would fit nicely into the collection. It would fit right in. It's a wrestler in a film that is well respected and well renowned, and he's a pioneer of doing that in terms of the wrestling business. So big love to They Live. I can't wait to watch it again. Number 4 is the first ever superhero film. It wasn't the first ever superhero film, it was the first ever Superman film. That's for sure. I loved the first Superman. I've seen Man of Steel, and I've seen Superman Returns, and I've seen Batman vs Superman and all these things, but I'd never seen the first Superman film from the 70s. And this film is on, Christopher Reeve, and I checked out, this is, full on peak COVID quarantine. This could have been like June or something like that. I watched this for the first time, really enjoyed it. And then like a month later, it was also just on again, and I watched the whole thing again. And I feel like there's something to that. Like, if you watch a film for the first time, really enjoy it, and then you watch it again soon after. I just think that's a really good way to kind of, hone in your love for the film and really absorb more about the film. That's why I really enjoyed the first ever Superman film. I've seen it twice now. I want to watch it again. It's so great. I've not seen the second one or any of the other ones after that from that kind of era. The next one after that I saw was like Superman Returns and Man of Steel and that sort of thing. So I will get back to them. I'll check them out. But I really want to watch the first one again. And that's why it's on this list, and that's why it's so high up at number 4. So number 4, Superman. Top 3, can you believe it? Number 3 is Man on the Moon, with an accompaniment of Jim and Andy, the documentary about Jim Carrey embracing the role of Andy Kaufman, which I know there's been things said about Jim Carrey not really nailing the role of Andy Kaufman, not really doing him justice. Andy Kaufman was a kind of warm-hearted, nice, funny guy, and Jim Carrey really made him out to be a total lunatic, because Jim Carrey went total method and totally had the character take over his life. But the film itself, I mean, I'm talking about those things there were, in Jim and Andy, the Netflix documentary. But the film Man on the Moon itself, I've been dying to watch this film because of the REM song, Man on the Moon. And I did a play in 2015 about the song Ignoreland by REM. And because of that, I'd listened to the whole album. I believe it's called Automatic to the People, or Automatic of the People. And Man on the Moon's in there, and I was like, oh my God, talking about, wrestling and Classy Freddie Blassie and Jerry Lawler and that sort of thing. So it's always been on my radar, and I'm such a big Jim Carrey fan. So seeing this film was unbelievable, because I didn't expect it to be as enjoyable as it was, and how mentally Jim Carrey went for it and stuff. I didn't really know much about Andy Kaufman. I know about the wrestling side of things and that sort of thing, obviously, but the whole stand-up thing, failing as a comedian and then going total character-based and that sort of thing, it's just winning over everybody. And the songs they would sing and the Latka character, just hilarious. And all the stuff about him, like, is he really dead, and the illness and that sort of thing. I don't know where they were going with that in life, but it was really interesting to see the behind the scenes of that. And Danny DeVito was great in this film too. Really great film. I loved Man on the Moon, and it's really hard to find on Blu-ray, but I really want it in my collection. So if anybody out there has Man on the Moon, hit up your boy. Number 2, Netflix original, The Irishman. Martin Scorsese with the big three, with Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. What an awesome film. I loved The Irishman. My boy Sebastian Maniscalco pops up as well, I think, which was nice to see him. Yeah, man, The Irishman, the typical sort of gangster film like The Godfather or Casino and that sort of thing, but of the modern day. Seeing Danny DeVito, Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci acting together in 2019, 2020 was just mental. Seeing them, as old men, evolved over time, and it got Joe Pesci out of retirement to do another Scorsese film. What a great film. And when I was talking about a film being drawn out, I don't love long films, I must say. I know it's 3 hours long, but I don't love long drawn out films, but I like when a story's told over time. And taking your time with this film and really embracing it and really just absorbing all the characters. I love the fact they just did whatever they wanted to because it was Netflix. They didn't worry about selling tickets or buying DVD sales and that sort of thing. They knew that people would want to see this film. And then what I did was I watched it in 2 halves. I watched it in 2 parts. Because it was too long for me. I've not got the greatest attention span. And I can, understand that, and I've observed that. So, I make a point to kind of use that. And I watched it in 2 halves, and it was great. It didn't feel like it was too long. It didn't feel overly long. It's dialogue heavy, but it makes the story the dialogue, because that's the style of dialogue and that's the style of life that these guys live. So The Irishman is amazing, and an amazing addition on Criterion that came out in 2022. I really want that too. And last but not least, I guess I'm cheating and I'm breaking my own rules, but my number 1 favourite film that I watched the first time in 2020 was the Rocky franchise. Now, in those videos that I made about Rocky, I told you, I have seen Rocky before. I had seen bits of Rocky 3, and I had seen Rocky Balboa. I had never seen Rocky 2, Rocky 4 or Rocky 5. I'd never seen Rocky 3 the whole way through. I watched Rocky 1 in the cinema. It was the last film I saw in the cinema in 2020 before it shut down for the second time. Was the first Rocky film. Amazing experience. Then, because I had this Undisputed collection on Blu-ray sitting on the shelf gathering dust, not knowing how much I loved these films, came home, watched Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, Rocky 5 and Rocky Balboa with all the special features, all the behind the scenes stuff, the documentaries, the interviews, and fell in love with not only the films and not only the characters, but the relationships in the film. It's such a beautiful franchise, and I just always had it as, the Sylvester Stallone Rocky boxing films, So when I watched the first one in the cinema, it was so good because the style of, I talked about this in my ranking Rocky film video, so please check out that video. But I talked about the style of dialogue and the style of writing that Rocky has and Sylvester Stallone has as an actor, but it's really like muffled sometimes, and he mumbles a lot, and it's really dialogue heavy. I didn't anticipate how dialogue heavy the first film was. Seeing it in the cinema was really beneficial because of the surround sound. You could really take in the film, and because of that I got used to the style. So when I was watching the other ones, I could really get used to it as well, and I could really enjoy it. But my favourite one is Rocky 3, by the way. Rocky 3 is my favourite Rocky film. I think it's the best one, with Eye of the Tiger and Mr. T and Hulk Hogan and that sort of thing. I think Rocky 3 is the best one. But what an amazing journey you go on, watching these films all in the one go. I watched them over like a week and a half, which was great. And just all of them, I'm just counting the whole franchise as my number 1 pick for 2020. So I hope that's okay with everybody. But there you go, there's my top 15 films that I watched for the very first time in 2020. I can't wait to watch some more classics for the first time in 2021. So until then, and until the next video, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CM42TV. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you all down the road.